Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. Step into 3 more true and baffling time-slip accounts where the normal flow of life blurs, boundaries fade, and the past greets the present. Join John in a Texan diner from decades gone. Walk with Derek through shifting, antiquated scenes in Manchester and witness echoes of Kathrine's grandfather's youthful years. These stories remind us that sometimes time holds secrets we've yet to understand. The Diner Between Time. On a cold and foggy night in December 2014, John Villalon and his wife were cruising around enjoying their vacation and the extra cash from a bonus check. With money to spend, they decided to embark on a spontaneous road trip and explore various paranormal hotspots around Texas. Having purchased an atlas from a gas store, they plotted a journey, drawing inspiration from a circle pattern his wife suggested on the map. Following this unique route, they visited the location of the alleged San Antonio children of the railroad tracks. Their adventure also led them to Marfa, Texas, to witness the mysterious Marfa lights, among other places. 5 days into their journey, John grew weary from the endless hours behind the wheel. Opting to head home at dusk to bypass the afternoon rush, the darkness soon enveloped them. With nearly 3 hours of driving still ahead and stomachs rumbling, John asked his wife to scout out a place to eat. Close to midnight, amidst the cold fog, they chanced upon a glaring neon sign which proclaimed all-night diner, anything you can eat for a small price. John remarked, "Perfect, just what we were looking for." However, his wife was slightly more apprehensive. The sight of an all-night diner in such a desolate location was unusual and a tad unsettling. But John's overriding hunger urged him to dismiss her concerns. They ventured inside, where they were treated to a hearty meal. The waitress was incredibly kind, and they ate until they were completely stuffed. Inside, John noticed that the restaurant had an old-fashioned flair, like something out of the 1970s. Everything, from the chairs to the tables, seemed like relics from another era. It was quite different from the contemporary diners they were used to. Another peculiarity was that they were the only customers in the establishment. When it was time to pay, John approached an ancient-looking cash register, the kind with a lever that, when pulled, would ring a bell upon opening. He thought maybe it was a deliberate effort by the owners to preserve a vintage ambience. But it did make him wonder where they had managed to find such an antiquated cash register, and in such remarkable condition too. Another oddity was the waitress. She didn't have a cell phone, and in fitting with the surrounding ambience, sported a classic 1970s hairstyle. To wrap things up, John took out 2 $20 bills, assuming the meal might be on the pricier side. However, he was taken aback when the total came to just under $10. He questioned the cashier, making sure the total was correct, given the amount they had consumed. Assured that the amount was accurate, he handed her a $20 bill and told her to keep the change as a generous tip. She expressed her immense appreciation, urging them to visit again whenever they were in the area. Back on the road, both felt a deep sense of satisfaction from the exceptional service they had received. They spoke of revisiting soon, especially since it was just a short 2-hour drive from their home. 2 weeks after their peculiar dining experience, John and his wife felt compelled to revisit the old-fashioned diner, this time during daylight. However, they were left baffled. No matter how many times they drove the familiar route, the diner was nowhere in sight. Instead, they found the remnants of a dilapidated structure, its roof gone, windows absent, and crumbling walls surrounded by overgrown grass. John scratched his head, wondering if they'd mistakenly ventured into the wrong town. But they were indeed in the right location, with only the building's old ruins to greet them. Perplexed, John approached a local resident, inquiring about the whereabouts of the diner. The local's response was one of astonishment. "How did you know there was a diner here?" John, in turn, grew more bewildered, responding, "What do you mean was? We dined there only a few weeks ago." The local relayed a chilling revelation. The diner had been razed by a fire over 40 years prior, taking with it the lives of all its employees. Skeptical, John passionately shared their recent experience. Undeterred, the local produced his cell phone, showing a news article that chronicled the tragic blaze and displayed photographs of the ill-fated workers. Among the images was the kind waitress who had served them that fateful night. Alarmed and overwhelmed, John and his wife expressed gratitude for the information, quickly left the area and sped away. As they drove, they grappled with the perplexing encounter. Had they inadvertently traversed a time rift, momentarily transported to an era when the diner thrived? Or had they dined among the spectral remnants of a bygone tragedy? John often revisited his memory of the encounter, seeking an explanation. While he struggled to recall the exact name of the town, he remembered it lying between La Grula and Zapata, Texas. A glimpse of Chiam past. In early 1983, when Derek Gibson was 49 years old, he travelled to the Chiam area of Manchester for his son's wedding. The day before the ceremony, Derek decided to familiarise himself with the route to the church, having never been to Manchester before. As he walked, his eyes were drawn across a main road to a dilapidated cemetery. It was enclosed by rusty railings, and long grass swayed gently over what appeared to be a chapel with a square tower. It's unclear whether Derek's attention momentarily wavered or if the transformation occurred right before his eyes, but suddenly the scenery changed. The once unkempt cemetery now appeared neat and well maintained, with clean brickwork and freshly painted railings. The dreary clouds gave way to a bright blue sky. A few figures moved briskly along a path to Derek's right. Two women, both around 30 years of age, particularly stood out. The one closer to him had her hair elegantly pinned up, donning a small hat adorned with flowers. She held a cream-coloured parasol, which shaded both her and her companion. Her attire consisted of a long white dress that swayed as she walked, a frilly blouse with a high collar, and elongated white gloves. The other woman, shorter in stature, had shoulder-length hair. They appeared deep in conversation, although Derek was too far to hear their words. Other figures on the path were less distinct. As quickly as it appeared, the scene dissolved, returning to the dreary present. Continuing his walk, Derek approached a road junction. He noticed a patio area bordered by several modern-fronted shops arranged in a semicircle. He scanned other stores to his right and was about to cross the street when he observed yet another shift in the scenery. The patio now featured several wooden tables and chairs, occupied by men dressed in thick grey flannel and large flat caps. The shops behind them seemed empty, with only a few items on display. The pavement was elevated, surrounded by bollards placed at intervals. The entire scene looked as if it was taken from an old photograph, a monochromatic world, its colour subdued. The men seemed to be engrossed in conversation outside what appeared to be a public house or cafe. Yet, despite the bustle, Derek couldn't hear any sounds, not even the hum of traffic. An ethereal feeling enveloped him, and the scene felt strangely familiar. But just as suddenly as it had appeared, the vision faded, replaced once more by the modern world. The chair that remembered. Kathrine Harper once recounted a haunting tale. She saw her grandfather, who had passed away 5 years prior, sitting on his favourite porch chair. Her grandfather, who had left this world in 2003, was fond of sitting on his front porch in his youthful days. Kathrine had never witnessed him indulging in this pastime personally. By the time she was old enough to remember, he had ceased this routine. However, she had seen numerous photographs capturing him in that very spot. Living on the same street, Kathrine would often pass by her grandparents' house. One day, as she was returning home from work, roughly 5 years after her grandfather's passing, she instinctively looked towards their house. To her astonishment, she saw her young grandfather, as vivid as a living person, leisurely sitting on the front porch in his cane chair, sipping tea. Stunned, she blinked and looked again, but he had vanished. That was the last and only time she glimpsed him there. Kathrine often pondered that experience, wondering if it was a mere trick of her mind, superimposing the memory of the photograph onto the present view, or perhaps a bizarre glitch in time.